Hi, this is Michael Sabat, and I thank you for joining me on my channel where we explore daily the latest headlines and we could dive deeper into the subjects that's going on in people's minds. And today we're going to explore a little bit more about the subject I spoke about last night, and that is the social unrest that's going on around the world right now due to the coronavirus COVID-19 outbreaks. And if you'd like to see that video from yesterday, you could click on the card above. I'm going to leave a link there, and I'll also leave a link in the bottom of the description so you could find it later on. So let's dive in. And the first article we're going to explore is this article from Reason magazine that I've explored a little bit last night. Pandemic related unemployment and shutdowns are a recipe for social unrest. There's a huge concern as forecasters expect the U.S. unemployment rate in the months to come to surpass that seen during the depths of the Great Depression. And you can see down here, Mr. James Bullard, he is the president of the Federal Reserve Bank in St. Louis. He was saying that we're putting this initial number at 30%. That's a 30% unemployment rate. And he also adds that the GDP will expected to drop at around 50%. Now, there's no doubt that economic hardships and the stoppage of commerce will lead to social unrest because, and as I was explaining last time, that people will need to feed themselves. If you look at the needs of people, the hierarchy of needs, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the most basic level that people need to survive are the physical needs. That is food, shelter. Those are the most important things. Everything else will come above that. And if you imagine you are a blue-collar worker, lost your job, and the social distancing is preventing you from finding another job or from returning to the work you had before, and you have children to feed, can you imagine the desperation and the lengths that anybody would go through just to feed their child? If you can imagine that, and imagine that 30% of the workforce, and most of these are probably young men who are blue-collar workers, imagine where they're going to go. They will land their anger out somewhere. But let us continue a little bit more. It says here, results from the empirical analysis indicate that economic growth and the unemployment rate are the two most important determinants of social unrest. That's from the International Labor Organization. For example, one standard deviation increase in unemployment raises social unrest by 0.39 standard deviations, while one standard deviation increase in GDP reduces social unrest by 0.19 standard deviations. And this has to be taken into context, especially in the time where Italy right now is facing social unrest. Now, granted, Italy is maybe a few weeks ahead of us in terms of the coronavirus outbreak, but we have to keep in mind and learn lessons. We are not Italy. We are a much larger country, and we are 50 states in one union and several territories. However, the social unrest that's going on in Italy due to the prolonged social distancing is something that needs to be studied in a modern context, because it could happen here at any time, especially with a 30% unemployment rate. If you read that Reason magazine, they're saying that the highest unemployment rate during the Great Depression was about roughly 24%. And during that time, FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, had to create the Civilian Conservation Corps, where he basically had to create jobs for these unemployed men, and he took them from their homes and had them work on the national parks. That's why we have real beautiful national parks these days, or one of the reasons. But let's explore a little bit about what's going on in Europe, and these are lessons that we need to learn from. So in Italy, politicians warn of social unrest as lockdown likely to be extended. Italy under acute strain after the government shut down all but essential shops, business industry in a bid to contain the contagion. And it says here, Italian politicians warn of civil unrest in the country's poor southern regions as the coronavirus lockdown looks to be set to be extended at least until Easter. Now, we have to keep in mind that in Europe they've had a long history uh, of having strongmen take over their countries whenever a bad a bad situation arises, um, and this situation in Italy is bleeding out throughout the rest of the Europe, especially in Eastern Europe, Central and Eastern Europe, and you could see that with the passing of new set of laws that has given Viktor Orban basically a rule by decree. He basically has dictatorial powers. This is from CNN. Hungarian parliament votes to let Viktor Orban rule by decree in the wake of a coronavirus pandemic. Now, that is a scary thought. What is going on in Italy? It's having a domino effect to the rest of Europe. The European Union right now, or what's called the Schengen zone, is breaking apart. The Czech Republic is stealing medical supplies from Italy that's being shipped to Italy. France last week has stopped shipments of supplies to the UK, medical supplies to the UK. Everybody right now is fighting each other. And this will eventually lead to strongmen and possible dictatorial status in some of these countries. And we'll read over here. Hungary's parliament has voted to allow Prime Minister Viktor Orban to rule by decree indefinitely in order to combat the coronavirus pandemic, giving the populist leader extra powers to unilaterally enact a series of sweeping measures. The bill, which has been criticized by international human rights watchdogs, has no specified end date and allows Orban to bypass a number of democratic institutions in his response to the outbreak. It was approved by Parliament on Monday with 138 votes in favor and 53 against, which the bill required two-thirds majority to pass. Now, how is that going to play out, and how is that going to affect us here in the United States? In the United States, we have a constitution, we have a constitutional republic, we have 50 states, and each of those states are technically republics by themselves. So really the way the United States works is that we have 50 different republics under one federation. And this federation is supposed to be kept in check by the Constitution. And believe it or not, there are people pushing for the United States to be a bit more dictatorial, a bit more tyrannical in some ways. Would you believe that it's not Donald Trump? Let me show you. Here, Political Magazine is actually making fun and pushing the President Trump to become an authoritarian. They're calling him an authoritarian weak man. This is a column by one of Political Magazine's founding editors. Trump is an authoritarian weak man. Coronavirus would be a perfect opportunity for an autocrat. Trump isn't taking it. There are people in our own country pushing for this already. The problem with that is that we must always remember what Benjamin Franklin said. Those who would sacrifice their liberty for the sake of security deserve neither and will lose both. And I will show you another famous person that has pushed the president to become more dictatorial. And I found this fascinating. This is Mr. Joe Biden, presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. I'm issuing this challenge to the president. In the next 48 hours, direct the production and distribution of respirator masks, gloves, protective face shields, and gowns to fill every supply request made by the government to the federal government. Lives are at stake. So what are we to do? If President Trump follows the dictates of Mr. Joe Biden, he will essentially take over the economy just like a socialist dictator, just like Maduro in Venezuela, and we will be well on our way to be like Hungary. You'll have a president who has unlimited powers, but President Trump has stopped himself from doing that. He has, as far as I know, he's rarely used the Defense Production Act that he has enacted, and he has to only use it in one big company, which is GM. And let's try to remember that this is a time where anything could happen. And I'm hoping and praying that the president will make the right decisions and not lead us into a dictatorship like some of the places around the world. Subscribe if you like my content, and I'm revising and trying to improve my video content here for you guys. And I'll try to do this daily. Every 7 o'clock I'll be uploading a new video, 7 o'clock a.m. Central Time. So if you like my content, please leave a comment below, leave a like, subscribe, and keep the conversation going. And thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.